Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a topic that is, let's be honest, probably keeping a few of you up at night. Getting your organization ready for a migration to SAP S/4HANA Finance. So let's cut through the noise and get right into your prep guide for this massive journey. So, you're planning your migration. You already know it's a huge deal. It's complex, the stakes are incredibly high, and honestly, it can feel a little overwhelming just trying to figure out where on earth to start. But don't you worry, we're going to break it down into manageable pieces. I want you to think about this migration less like a giant, scary to-do list and more like a mission, a flight. And, before any important flight, you've got to run a pre-flight check. We're going to focus on two and only two critical checkpoints that you absolutely have to clear before you even think about kicking off the main conversion. Okay, our first checkpoint is all about system readiness. This is the foundation. It's about getting the core system itself ready to go. Before you can change a single line of your own custom code, you have to make absolutely sure the system itself is compatible and ready for what's coming its way. So, how do you do that? Well, it starts with this very specific three-step sequence. First, you run the maintenance planner. That creates a critical stack file, and only then can you execute the prechecks. Listen, you can't skip a step, you can't change the order. This is the official launch sequence, period. So what's the maintenance planner actually doing under the hood? Well, you can think of it like a building inspector for your system. It's checking if your current add-ons and your activated business functions are even going to work with S/4HANA Finance. It also checks a bunch of technical stuff, like file paths. It's basically looking for any cracks in the foundation before you start this massive renovation. And you have to take this part deadly seriously. This isn't just a friendly warning you can click past. If this pre-check process finds a critical error, the whole conversion comes to a grinding halt. Full stop. It's a hard gate, and it's there to prevent a much, much bigger catastrophe down the road. Which brings us to this number 2. Why 2? Well, the system is so cautious about this whole thing that these pre-checks are actually run twice. The Software Update Manager, you probably know it as SUM, runs the check once at the very beginning, and then it runs it again later on, just to be absolutely sure. It's a built-in measure twice, cut once philosophy. All right, so once your system's foundation gets the all clear, we can move on to our second big checkpoint, code readiness. This is where we shift our focus from the standard system to all of that custom code, all those special programs your team has been building for years. This is where it gets personal. Now, to really get why your code needs checking, you have to understand this massive architectural shift. In the old system, your financial data was kind of scattered across a whole bunch of different tables and indexes. S/4HANA changes all that with the Universal Journal, this one table, ACDOC, which becomes the single source of truth. So what happens to the old tables? Well, they're replaced by something called compatibility views. And right here, this is the single biggest gotcha you need to watch out for. Those new compatibility views that look just like your old tables, their permissions get changed from write access to read only. So what does that mean? It means if you have a custom program that's supposed to write data to one of those tables, boom, it's going to fail. It just lost its permission. You have to find every single one of these instances and fix them. And here's another big one. If you have any custom programs for asset accounting that use those old school batch inputs, for loading data in bulk, those are just not supported anymore. They're gone. You have to convert these programs to use BAPIs, which are basically the modern official way for applications to talk to each other in the SAP world. So let's just quickly recap where you need to focus your code checking efforts. First, you've got to check all your interfaces with external systems. Second, like we just talked about, those old batch inputs for asset accounting, they must be converted to BAPIs. And finally, some of the older ways of sharing data, like ALEs for CO line items, are no longer supported, and the system can't check this automatically, so this one's on you to review manually. So after clearing those two huge checkpoints, system readiness and code readiness, you are almost there. We have covered the entire technical pre-flight inspection. So let's wrap all this up with a clear, final checklist for you. Here it is. This is your takeaway. First, run the mandatory system prechecks. No excuses, no exceptions. Second, hunt down every piece of custom code that's going to be hit by that read-only access change and adapt it. Third, convert those old batch inputs over to BAPIs. And finally, number 4, manually, and I mean manually, review your interfaces and ALEs. If you can nail these 4 points, your technical prep is going to be on rock-solid ground. And that really brings us to our final thought for today. Getting through all this technical prep is a massive accomplishment. It truly is. But it also leads to an even bigger question. Once the system is ready, once the code is ready, the focus has to shift. Is your team ready? Are they ready for the new processes, the new capabilities, and the whole new way of working that S/4HANA Finance is about to bring? Now that's the next part of the journey.